Hey everyone, welcome to another quick tips Tactica video. As always, my name is Jay, and today I will be going over, in my opinion, what is the minimal number of troops that you should take in a list. Now, obviously, troops are the core of your army. They're the ones that score the objectives. Now, depending on what scenario you're playing, in a game, other guys might be able to score objectives such as in Big Guns Never Tire, the heavy support can claim objectives. In the Scouring, fast attack can score objectives. If you roll a 6 on the personal warlord traits, your warlord can score objectives. But that does not mean that troops are any less important in the game of Warhammer 40k. Now, most of the scenarios in the book, and that you'll go to tournaments and you'll see, are based on objectives. And objectives are primarily scored by troops, so you got to take some. And I know, depending on which army you take, troops may not be the nicest choice, but you have to take some, because otherwise all your opponent has to do is kill all your troops, and then you're essentially kind of playing for a draw because you can't score any objectives. And this does bring up the importance, obviously, of the secondary objectives, such as Slay the Warlord, Linebreaker, and First Blood. In my opinion, now this is just my opinion, but I believe if you're going to play competitively, you should bring at least 3, usually 3, if not 4, squads of troops for your army. Now, the reason being is Warhammer 40k is an objective game. It's all about objectives. Who scores objectives? The troops, as I just mentioned, right? Now let's look at the average number of objectives per mission. Let's take into consideration the number of objectives in each mission, for example. If you're playing a random objective game or a random mission game from the book, for example, if you roll a 1, you get Crusade. Crusade has D3 plus 2 objectives, so on average 4 objectives. If you don't bring at least 3 squads of troops, there is no way you'll be able to claim more than 2 objectives, right? And if your opponent wipes out 1 or both of your troops, you're essentially in big trouble, which is what happens here at MiniWarGaming. Whenever you see a list that only has 1 or 2 troops, you see that squad get either dominated or it will occasionally win based on certain circumstances. So once again, for the first one, at least on average 4 objectives, sometimes as much as 5. The next one, Purge the Alien. Now this one has nothing to do with objectives, which is why I recommend bringing 3 or 4, and if possible, ways to vary the number of troops. That way you can increase the number of troops if there's an objective game, or decrease the number of troops if it's a Purge the Alien game. The next one is Big Guns Never Tire, which once again, D3 plus 2 objectives, so anywhere between 3 and 5 objectives, plus heavy support can score. But if you bring a well-rounded list, what I typically run in tournaments and in games, you should be okay in this scenario if you bring at least 3 scoring units. Because that way, if you get a score of about 3, you have enough that you can score some objectives while trying to contest or destroy your opponents. Mission number 4 is the Scouring. Now the Scouring is the best example of why you need a lot of troops, because in most lists, fast attack tends to be the most ignored slot when building armies. People tend to think of the heavy support, the elites, the HQs, and the troops. I personally don't run many fast attack choices in most of my lists. And so for the Scouring, the fast attack ones are the ones that can score, but again, most people don't bring many of them, so they don't have an advantage there. And there are 6 objectives in the game worth a varying amount, anywhere from 1 to 4 points, and you don't know where they are at the beginning of the game when you deploy. So unless you bring 3, and I said at earliest 3, I usually bring 4 at least troops choices. Some of my lists are all troops. In fact, I like to run all troops if possible. The Scouring is one of those games that if you don't do this, you're going to be in trouble. Because if your opponent can score 2 or 3 objectives, especially if they accidentally end up near the high ones and you end up near the low ones, you're going to be in big trouble. Mission number 5 is the Emperor's Will. Now, the reason why, once again, you got to bring more than 2, unless those 2 are amazing at camping on an objective. For example, if you bring a Turvagon, they're amazing at sitting on your objective and preventing them from dying. So in this case, it'd be good. But it's the Emperor's Will is the only one where there's 2 objectives. There's one with lower, obviously, which will be the next one. But yeah, you got to be able to score that objective. And finally, number 6 is my favorite, probably the relic. Now, if you don't run with more than 2 troops choices, it's gonna be very hard to grab that relic and bring it back. And the relic alone is worth 3 points. So unless you're willing to get First Blood, Linebreaker, and Slay the Warlord, or you completely table your opponent, you cannot let that one objective slip through your fingers. If your opponent grabs it and is able to get away from you by them bringing a lot of troops, you're in big trouble. So now I'm just going to show you a couple easy ways. Now they're probably very intuitive, but a couple easy ways that you can think about that can vary the number of troops, so that in case you get Purge the Alien, you can go on the low side, and if you get a high number of objectives, you can go on the high side. Now, probably one of my favorite troops in the entire game is the Tervagon. Now the reason why I love it so much is a giant monstrous creature that can score objectives, which is amazing. And on top of that, this is one of those armies where you can vary the number of troops. So if you bring 2 Tervagons and 2 squads of Gaunts, it's 4 kill points, yes, and if it's a kill point game, you don't spawn whatsoever, but if it's a game like the Scouring, you can just keep spawning and throwing them at the objectives, and that will definitely help you capture the objective and win the game. And for you many Space Marine players, the simplest thing out there is just to bring full 10-man squads of Tactical Marines, or Terminators, or whatever you wish, and simply combat squad them if you want. So if it's a kill point mission, keep them full strong of 10. And if it's an objective game, split into 2 squads of 5, and that way if you bring 3 squads of 10 Tactical Marines, or whatever troops choice you want, you combat squad them, that gives you up to 6 troop choices if you want. And that could score a lot of objectives and let you win the game. And if you're running Horde armies like Orcs, another great thing with Orc boys is that they don't die easily when in swarms of boys. What I like to do is, as you can see by my bat reps, I like to run 3 just giant squads of Orc boys, because rarely does your opponent have that much firepower, and nothing's harder to get off an objective like 30 fearless Orc boys. So that's always a great way to score those objectives and win you the game as well if you're playing a Horde's army. So thank you very much for watching this quick TIp Tactica video. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below on your opinion on the minimal number of troops that you should take when building an army. And also, what more Tactica videos would you like to see from us? So thank you very much for watching. Till next time, this is Jay saying, happy wargaming, everyone.